That night I thought my wife had come to me, so I didn't resist. But when I realized the truth that it wasn't her, the craziest part wasn't just the deception. It was that for a moment I let it continue. To be honest, I never imagined that someone I trusted, someone who had been part of our home, would blur the lines in a way that left me breathless with disbelief. That night I was alone in bed. The house was too quiet with my wife away working another night shift. The air held a stillness that seeped into the walls, the sheets, even my skin. The soft hum of the clock on the nightstand was the only sound punctuating the silence. For context, it wasn't unusual for a friend of ours, someone close to the family, to stay over. He was like part of the household, and over time I'd grown used to my wife's absences. Used to sleeping alone to the cool, empty side of the bed. My eyelids grew heavy with sleep, my mind drifting in that hazy space between waking and dreaming. Shadows shifted, thoughts tangled. At first I barely registered the sound, the slow, deliberate creak of the bedroom door. My consciousness stirred but didn't fully wake. Then the bed shifted, a presence, warmth that shouldn't have been there. My breath caught in my throat, my body tensing as instinct wrestled with exhaustion. The familiarity of it soothed me first. It wasn't abrupt or harsh. It was careful, measured. My muddled mind reached for the only conclusion. She's home early. My voice was groggy, words slurred with sleep. Babe. A pause, a silence that stretched a little too long. Shh, came the response, soft, almost uncertain. Go back to sleep. I exhaled, body relaxing, sinking back into the mattress. The weight beside me felt familiar, the scent vaguely so, though not quite the same. My wife's perfume was usually sharp, floral, but this was different, softer. Fingers brushed my arm, grazing bare skin lightly, sending a shiver down my spine. It wasn't a touch I recognized. Not hers, not anymore. My thoughts swam. My subconscious begged me to ignore it, to let myself drift back to sleep. But then the touch lingered, fingertips tracing from my arm to my shoulder, slow and deliberate, my breath hitched. A wrongness pressed at the edges of my awareness, like a puzzle piece forced into the wrong place. My eyes fluttered open in the dim moonlight filtering through the curtains. And then I saw the face, close, too close. It wasn't my wife. My stomach turned to ice. My voice came out as a whisper, broken and unsure. Mark. He froze, caught in something that couldn't be explained away. Silence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. His face hovered near mine, too close for comfort, too close to mistake for anything but what it was. My chest tightened. My heart thundered so loudly I swore he could hear it. His hand still rested on my arm. His breath was shallow, uneven. What are you doing? I managed, my voice stronger now, sharpened with panic. He hesitated, searching for words. You looked cold, he murmured, barely above a whisper. I just wanted to keep you warm. The absurdity of it made my pulse stumble. My body was rigid, mind racing, disbelief clawing at me. His fingers twitched as if debating whether to retreat, but he didn't. His eyes locked with mine, unreadable. The weight of his presence was overwhelming, suffocating. My skin prickled under his touch, every nerve alive, screaming at me to move, to react, to do something. But for a moment I couldn't. I was frozen in the silence, in the terror of realizing this was no misunderstanding. But the weight of his gaze, the slow, controlled way he moved, made it impossible to react the way I should have. Instead, I swallowed hard, my throat dry. His voice finally broke the silence. I don't, but he didn't finish. He exhaled slowly, his eyes flickering lower for just a moment before finding mine again. Panic wrestled with something else inside me, something unnameable, something I didn't want to acknowledge. My fingers clenched the sheets beneath me, grounding me in reality, in the truth of this moment. You need to leave, I said, though my voice lacked the strength I wanted it to carry. He didn't move right away. Instead, he studied me as if searching for something, then pressed his lips together. I don't want to scare you, he murmured. I just wanted to be close to you. A lump formed in my throat, my body rigid. This isn't right, Mark. The words sat heavy in the air like a barrier neither of us dared to cross. Finally, he pulled back slightly, his fingers slipping away from my skin. The sudden loss of warmth should have been our relief, but instead it left a strange, hollow ache in its place. He sat there, tense, his hands clenching in his lap, breath uneven. I could see it in his eyes, the conflict, the hesitation, the unwillingness to let this moment go. Neither of us spoke. The air felt thick, charged, as if the walls themselves were pressing in closer. Somehow I knew this wasn't over. Maybe I knew it because even though I wanted to push him away, some part of me still hadn't moved. His breathing slowed, steadier now, as though he was deciding what came next. But he didn't leave. Instead, he shifted slightly, his hand hovering just above the blanket between us, fingers twitching. The room seemed smaller, tighter. Then, with deliberate care, he spoke again. "I've thought about this, about you, for a long time." The confession was barely above a whisper, yet it crashed over me like a tidal wave, stealing the air from my lungs. My breath hitched, chest tightening with something I couldn't name. Moments ago I had been caught in the disbelief of what was happening, but hearing him say it, admitting it, made it real. I swallowed hard, my throat burning. "Mark." My voice barely came out, lost in the charged silence between us. His eyes never left mine, and for the first time I saw something raw in them. "Unguarded, impossible, Twenyo." "I mean it," he murmured. "I've thought about this for so long." "About you." I gripped the sheets tighter, desperate to ground myself. "You don't know what you're saying," I managed, voice unsteady. "This isn't, it can't. I do know," he cut in, firm but not forceful. "I've known for a long time." A sinking feeling settled into my stomach, my pulse thundering in my ears. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to stop this, to tell him to leave, to put distance between us. But I didn't move. He was still so close, his body mere inches from mine. Heat radiating off him, making the air heavy, suffocating. And the worst part, the part I didn't want to admit, was how aware I was of it. Every breath he took, the way his fingers twitched like he wanted to reach for me again, but was forcing himself not to. He forced himself to hold back. I inhaled sharply. "Mark, you have to stop this." I tried to put as much authority into my voice as I could, but the moment the words left my mouth, regret curled in my chest, because deep down, a part of me didn't want him to stop. A muscle ticked in his jaw, and for the briefest second something flickered across his expression. Something pained, frustrated. "I know you feel it too," he said quietly. I stiffened. "You don't know anything." His gaze darkened slightly, a sharp exhale slipping past his lips. "Then why aren't you telling me to leave?" I opened my mouth, but the words tangled in my throat. He was right. I should have said it. I should have thrown the covers off, pushed him out of my bed, out of my room, out of whatever fantasy he had convinced himself of. But I hesitated, and he saw it. His eyes searched mine, and for a long moment neither of us spoke. The tension coiled so tight, I thought I might suffocate under it. Then cautiously he lifted his hand, slow, deliberate, giving me time to react, to stop him. But I didn't. His fingertips brushed my arm. "Feather light testing." A shiver rolled through me. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Tell me to go when I will." I could feel my heartbeat in my throat, erratic, uneven. My breathing had turned shallow. My body refused to move, refused to push him away, refused to do what I knew was right. His fingers traced upward, pausing at my shoulder. My skin prickled beneath his touch, my pulse roaring in my ears. Every part of me screamed this was dangerous, that it had already gone too far. But still I didn't move. Mark inhaled slowly, carefully, his thumb grazing just below my collarbone. His touch was hesitant, almost uncertain, waiting for me to pull away, but I remained frozen. His gaze flickered to my lips, my breath caught. I realized too late that I had done nothing to stop him, that my silence was an answer in itself. The moment stretched, tension tightening like a noose. He leaned in slightly, so close I could feel the warmth of his breath ghosting over my skin. His scent, familiar yet foreign, wrapped around me, clouding my thoughts. I should have stopped this. I should have told him no. But for a single reckless second I let the weight of his words, his touch, everything that had led us here, pull me under. His lips brushed my shoulder, soft, barely there. A lingering hesitation before he pulled back, just enough to meet my gaze again. His fingers hovered near my skin, close but not quite touching, as if waiting for permission to continue. The silence was deafening. I swallowed hard, my body rigid with tension. "Mark, this isn't." My voice faltered, too weak to be convincing. His gaze darkened, jaw tightening. "It isn't what?" he murmured. "What we both know it is." I sucked in a breath, but before I could respond, his fingers slid lightly down my arm, slow, deliberate, setting fire to my skin. A quiet ache formed in my chest. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't forcing. He was waiting, watching me, reading me. giving me every chance to stop this. But I didn't. Mark let out a shaky breath as if he had been holding it in for years. "I've thought about this," he admitted, voice low. "About you?" His confession sent a jolt through me. But still I didn't move. I should have felt horrified, disgusted. But I didn't. I felt something else, something I wasn't ready to name. My hands tightened in the sheets, desperate to anchor myself to reason. "This is wrong," I whispered. Though the words rang hollow, his voice was soft, steady. "Then why haven't you stopped me?" I exhaled sharply, shaking my head, trying to clear the fog creeping over my thoughts. I don't know. But I did know. It was the way he looked at me, the way he saw me. And that terrified me. Mark shifted closer, his presence pressing in on me, making my pulse race. "Tell me to go," he whispered again, his lips barely a breath away from my skin. "Tell me you don't feel this," I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. I should have told him to leave. I should have pushed him away. But instead I did the worst thing imaginable. I closed my eyes. The second my lashes fluttered shut, his breath hitched. A shaky exhale filled with everything neither of us had dared to say. The space between us shrank, charged with something volatile. Mark hesitated, his breath uneven, waiting for a final confirmation. My hands trembled in my lap, torn between fear and something far more dangerous. Slowly, as if afraid I might vanish if he moved too quickly, he reached up, tracing his fingers along my jaw. The touch was feather-light, a mere whisper of contact, but it sent a shiver down my spine. "Say it," he murmured. I tried. I really did, but the words wouldn't come. My silence was all the answer he needed. His lips hovered just above mine, so close I could almost taste him. But he didn't close the distance. He was waiting, holding still, giving me one last chance to stop this. I didn't move. Our breaths mingled. The air between us thick, heavy, charged with an electricity that threatened to consume me whole. His fingers pressed lightly into my skin, tilting my chin up just enough to leave me vulnerable beneath him. Still, he didn't kiss me as if he was playing some kind of dangerous game, because, trust me, it would have been easier if he had. Instead, he dragged his lips to the side, grazing my cheek before pressing a lingering kiss to the corner of my mouth. Just close enough to set my nerves on fire, just far enough to leave me breathless with anticipation. I let out a shaky exhale, my body betraying me. Sensing I had reached my breaking point, he whispered, "I don't want to stop." His lips brushed against mine, soft, hesitant, questioning. My fingers clenched the sheets tighter, and just like that, the last of my resistance crumbled. His warmth lingered on my skin, ghosting over my arm like an invisible imprint. It was such a small thing, yet it felt monumental, like a brand seared into my flesh. My mind screamed at me to move, to push him away, to make this stop. But my body refused to listen. "You don't understand what you're doing," I finally whispered, my voice. "You don't know what you're saying." Mark exhaled sharply, shaking his head. "I do," he murmured. "I know exactly what I'm doing." His certainty was dangerous. It made my stomach twist, made my pulse stutter unevenly. He wasn't a boy anymore. That realization sent a tremor through me. There was no hesitation in his eyes, no doubt. He wasn't just saying this, and he meant it. I swallowed hard, gripping the sheets beneath me as if they could ground me. "Mark, this isn't right. It can't happen. Why not?" His voice was quiet but firm. A stubborn determination, sending another shiver down my spine. "I'm married," I said, my breath shaky. His jaw tensed, his throat bobbing as he swallowed. "That doesn't change anything," he said, his voice raw. "It doesn't change the way I feel about you." I turned my face away, staring at the bedroom wall, hoping that if I didn't look at him, this moment wouldn't feel so real. But he didn't let me escape so easily. His fingers, warm and steady, found my wrist, his touch feather light but insistent. "Look at me," he said. I couldn't, please." That one word nearly shattered me. Slowly, hesitantly, I turned my head, and when our eyes met, the weight of everything unsaid crashed over me like a tidal wave. His gaze was intense, filled with something I didn't want to name, something I didn't want to acknowledge, because it made my own feelings. Theonice I had tried so desperately to bury, impossible to ignore. I was trembling. I could feel it in my hands, in my chest, and the uneven rise and fall of my breath. He noticed, his fingers tightened gently around my wrist, grounding me. "You don't have to be afraid," he murmured. "I would never hurt you." "I know," I whispered, my voice barely audible. He shifted closer, leaning in just enough for me to feel the warmth radiating from his skin. My breath caught, my heart hammered. He was testing the waters, waiting for me to stop him, to push him away, but I didn't move. His hand rose hesitant at first, then brushed a loose strand of hair from my face. The touch was soft, almost reverent, and it sent another shiver down my spine. I saw something flicker in his expression when he realized I wasn't going to tell him to leave. His fingers trailed lower, barely grazing my cheek, lingering at the curve of my jaw. His breathing was uneven now, matching mine. I was drowning in the way he looked at me, in the way his touch set my skin all light. His lips parted slightly as if he was about to speak, but instead of words, he leaned in further. Slow, careful, deliberate. His lips brushed my temple first. The faintest touch that sent my pulse skyrocketing, then lower. A soft, tentative kiss against my cheek. His breath fanned across my skin, warm, unsteady. I exhaled shakily, gripping the sheets with white-knuckled fists. This was wrong. So wrong. And yet, when he pressed his forehead against mine, when I felt the tremor in his hands, I didn't pull away. I stayed. I let the moment hold me captive. His lips hovered over mine just a breath apart. When suddenly a noise outside shattered everything. We both jolted back, startled, breathless. My heart pounded against my ribs as I turned toward the door, half expecting it to burst open. He stiffened beside me, jaw tight. The fragile moment we had been teetering on was gone, replaced by heavy silence. Reality crashed down on me like ice water. My pulse still raced. My skin still buzzed from his touch, but at last reason broke through. This couldn't continue. I needed to stop it before it went any further. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. I should go, he muttered. I nodded, my throat tight. Yes, but then before I could stop myself, the words slipped out. Come back tomorrow. We need to finish this. For a moment, he didn't move. His eyes searched mine as if trying to find something. An answer, a reason to stay. And then, after what felt like an eternity, he stood. I didn't look at him as he walked toward the door. I kept my gaze on the sheets, willing my heartbeat to slow, willing my mind to stop replaying the heat of his touch. The door opened with a soft creak. Just as he was about to step out, he paused. You felt it too, he said quietly. Not a question, just a truth. I squeezed my eyes shut. Seconds passed, then the door clicked closed. I exhaled shakily, collapsing back against the pillows, my pulse still racing, my body still trembling. This wasn't over. I knew that now. It was only the beginning. The silence in the room was unbearable. I could still hear the faint echo of his footsteps down the hall, but it did nothing to ease the tightness in my chest. My body refused to relax. Every nerve still buzzed. Every patch of skin still burned where his fingers had touched. I turned onto my side, gripping the pillow like it could steady my spiraling thoughts. The worst part wasn't that he'd said it. It wasn't even that he had touched me. The worst part was that I hadn't stopped him. I had let him stay. I had let it happen. I had let him sit on my bed, let him run his fingers along my arm, let him whisper those forbidden words, and worst of all, I had let myself feel something in return. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing the thoughts away, but sleep never came. Hours passed, the night dragging on, the weight of what had happened settling over me like a heavy fog. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him, the way he looked at me, the tremor in his voice when he said my name. By the time the first hints of morning crept through the curtains, exhaustion clung to me like a second skin. Still, I couldn't get up, not yet, because I knew the moment I stepped out of that room, I would have to face him, and I didn't trust myself to. But avoiding him wasn't an option. Finally, I forced myself out of bed, each movement slow, reluctant. The house was eerily quiet as I padded down the hallway, holding my breath. I expected to see him, to feel his presence the second I stepped into the kitchen, but he wasn't there. Relief washed over me, fleeting, fragile. The weight of last night still lingered in the air, thick and suffocating. I poured myself a cup of coffee, though my hands shook. The heat seeped into my fingers as I brought the mug to my lips. I had to act normal, pretend nothing had happened. That was the only way to make this go away. Then I heard it, the soft creak of footsteps behind me. I knew it was him before I even turned. I forced myself to move to meet his gaze. He stood in the doorway, expression unreadable. His hair was tousled, his shirt wrinkled like he hadn't slept much either. His eyes locked onto mine, searching, waiting. Neither of us spoke. The silence stretched heavy with what we both remembered. I started, but the words caught in my throat. I didn't even know what I was about to say. He exhaled through his nose, running a hand through his hair. Are we going to talk about it? I stiffened. There's nothing to talk about. His jaw tightened. You don't believe that? I turned back to my coffee, desperate to break eye contact, desperate for something, anything to ground me. Last night was a mistake. A long pause. Then quietly. Was it? I inhaled sharply, gripping the edge of the counter. Yes, he didn't move, but his presence pressed into me, unshakable. Then why didn't you stop me? His voice was calm, too calm, but underneath it was an edge, a quiet challenge that sent a shiver down my spine. I swallowed hard because I was caught off guard, because I didn't know how to react. But I do now. I turned to face him again, forcing my voice steady. And I'm telling you, it can't happen again. He studied me for a long moment, eyes dark, unreadable. He didn't believe me. I could see it in the twitch of his fingers, the tension in his jaw, but he didn't argue. Instead, he nodded once. Okay, it should have felt like relief, should have eased the pressure in my chest. But it didn't, because in his voice and the way he looked at me, I could tell this wasn't over. It was only the beginning. And deep down I knew I was lying to myself when I said it would be because last night I'd asked him to come back to finish this. The rest of the day passed in a blur of avoidance. I buried myself in chores, distractions, anything to keep from being alone with him again. I told myself I was imagining things, the way he watched me, the way his presence lingered in the air long after he left a room. But I knew better, deep down. I knew that night I locked my bedroom door, not because I was afraid of him, but because I was afraid of myself. Hours slipped by, exhaustion weighing heavy on my body, yet sleep refused to come. My thoughts tangled, restless. I kept replaying last night in my head over and over until I could barely breathe. Then a knock. I froze, a soft, hesitant knock. Not demanding, not forceful, but deliberate. My pulse hammered against my ribs. Please. Leo's voice came through the door, muffled but clear. I just need to talk. It squeezed my eyes shut, pressing my palms into the mattress. Slowly, hesitantly, I moved toward the door. My fingers trembled where they hovered over the lock. This was dangerous. I knew that. And yet I turned it. Leo stood there, his expression caught between hesitation and something deeper, something unreadable. My breath caught. Neither of us moved. Eventually, in the heavy silence of my bedroom, he stepped inside. Come in, I'd said, even though I already knew exactly why he was there. The door clicked shut behind him. Such a soft sound, but deafening in the silence that followed. My breath came too fast, too shallow. My pulse thundering in my ears. Leo stayed just inside the doorway, his hands at his sides, his eyes locked on mine. He wasn't moving. He was waiting. I should have told him to leave. Should have turned him around, pushed him back into the hallway, but I didn't. I couldn't move at all. The air between us was thick, weighted with everything we weren't saying, everything we had tried to ignore. My fingers curled into the fabric of my nightshirt, clinging to it like it could anchor me. But I already knew nothing would stop what was happening. Leo inhaled slowly, controlled, his jaw tight. I told myself I wouldn't come, he murmured. That I'd leave it alone. My throat felt dry. Then why are you here? His lips pressed together, his fingers twitching at his sides. Because I can't stop thinking about you. A sharp breath escaped me. He stepped back, desperate for space, but he followed, careful, precise, closing the gap between us. I shook my head. Leo, I know. He cut in, his voice raw, unsteady. I know what this is. I know what it means, but I don't care. He was too close now. The warmth of him pressed into my space, drowning out what little rational thought I had left. This is wrong, I whispered. His gaze darkened. Then tell me to leave. I opened my mouth. The words should have been simple. They should have come without hesitation. But I faltered. And he saw it. He saw it in the way my breath caught, in the way my fists clenched into the fabric of my nightshirt, in the way my body swayed ever so slightly toward him instead of away. His hand lifted, hovering, waiting, and then finally he touched me. His fingers brushed my arms, warm and steady, grazing the curve of my shoulders. My body tensed, my heart hammering against my ribs. Every nerve screamed to move, to break away, to stop this before it was too late. But I didn't. I let him touch me. His fingertips trailed down my arm, slow, deliberate. The way he touched me was nothing like my husband's. It was different, genuine, full of something that made my stomach twist and my pulse quicken. I shivered. Leo exhaled sharply. "You feel it too," he murmured. I shook my head. "It doesn't matter." His fingers tightened slightly. "It does." I squeezed my eyes shut, my breath shallow, ragged. "Leo, we can't, we already have," he whispered. My eyes snapped open. His face was so close now, his lips just inches from mine. His breath warm against my skin. My skin tingled, sending a shiver down my spine. I felt myself leaning forward just the slightest bit, as if gravity was pulling me toward him, as if there was nothing I could do to stop it. Leo's lips parted slightly, his breath uneven, and then just as he was about to close the distance, just as my body betrayed me completely, a sudden noise from outside shattered everything. We both jolted back, hearts racing. I turned toward the window as headlights flooded the driveway, casting long, distorted shadows across the lawn. A car door slammed shut. I knew that sound. I knew that brisk, deliberate way of moving. The way the driver always parked slightly off-center, as if in too much of a hurry to care. Leo had barely left in time. If he had stayed a second longer, what would have happened? Would she have caught us? Would she have seen the way I had been looking at him? The way my hands trembled when he touched me. I forced myself to breathe, steadying my chest as I moved back to the bed. My hands shook slightly as I pulled the blanket over me, trying to erase every trace of what had just happened. But my body betrayed me. Heat still clung to my skin. My stomach twisted with anticipation I couldn't silence. The sound of the front door opening sent another shiver through me. Footsteps echoed down the hall, soft but sure. I closed my eyes, forcing my breathing to slow, pretending to be asleep. The bedroom door creaked open. I stayed still as Ava stepped inside, her presence filling the room. I heard the rustle of her coat being shrugged off, the quiet clink of her watch landing on the nightstand. A moment passed, then another. I could feel her watching me. At last, the mattress dipped as she climbed into bed. She sighed heavily, exhaustion weighing her down. Long day. My voice came out softer than I expected, almost hesitant. "Yeah," Ava exhaled, sharp and tired. She didn't elaborate. I swallowed hard, still facing away from her, my body stiff under the sheets. Silence stretched, heavy and suffocating, until she finally spoke again. "Are you okay?" I hesitated for half a second. "Yeah, just tired." She made a sound of acknowledgement and rolled onto her back. The quiet between us was deafening, but in my head Leo's voice wouldn't stop replaying. "You feel it too." And I hated that he was right. Even now, with my wife lying just inches away, all I could think about was Leo. The way his hands had trembled when he touched me, the way his lips hovered so close to mine. This had to stop. I clenched my hands beneath the sheets, nails pressing into my palms. If I kept thinking about him, if I kept letting myself fall into what almost happened, I was going to lose control. I had spent years building this life, years being a wife, years never daring to cross a line I swore I wouldn't. And yet, for the first time in so long, I had felt something dangerous, something exhilarating. I turned slightly, just enough to see Ava. Her breathing had evened out. She was already asleep. I exhaled slowly, relief and guilt tingling in my chest. And still to this day I carry that guilt, because the truth is it was one of the most intense experiences of my life. What about you? What would you have done in my place? Was it wrong? Let me know in the comments. I really want to hear your thoughts.